They're stealing your time, they're stealing your energy, and it's showing up in your money. That's why you can't buy anything. It's worthless. The system needs debt to keep going, and I don't want to contribute to that. I'm actually going to be undergoing a year experiment living on a Bitcoin standard. I know that it's going to be the next world reserve currency. I become less concerned with price as time goes on. It's becoming more important than ever to actually use Bitcoin the way that it's intended, which is, I definitely believe that Bitcoin is the only way any of us are really going to get ahead.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Kyle Sylvestre back to the podcast. Kyle is a father, a husband, and living on the Bitcoin standard and an advocate for Nostr. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Edge, Kyle.
Paula, thank you so much for having me back. I'm really excited for our chat today.
Yes, I am really excited to hear about you living on the Bitcoin standard. But before then, for those people who didn't hear our first discussion, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to Bitcoin.
Sure. Well, as you said, I'm a father and a husband. I discovered Bitcoin a few years ago from my brother-in-law. He's the one who brought it to my attention. I initially was doing some stacking back in late 2021 and 2022. Stopped for a couple years because I didn't believe in Bitcoin, but then was officially orange pilled last year. And I've been a Bitcoiner ever since, stacking daily.
Wow. Orange pilled last year and already starting to live on the Bitcoin standard. Tell us about that.
So it's a recent decision that I made. I was actually inspired by Jack Mallers from Strike. There is a video on his YouTube channel explaining the benefits of Strike's bill pay and how he utilizes it. And I was inspired so much by it that I wanted to try it for myself. So I'm actually going to be undergoing a year experiment, if you will, living on a Bitcoin standard. And so essentially what that means is I have a Fiat job. I will receive my paychecks as normal, but through Strike will auto convert my Fiat to Bitcoin. Then I can use that same banking account information through Strike to pay my bills when it's time for me to pay my bills. And when that happens, Strike will convert my Bitcoin and pay those bills. When that happens, there is a small possible cap gain on that, potential loss just due to Bitcoin's volatility at this time. But the goal would be, as we all know, that Bitcoin goes up about 50% per year. On average, 30 to 50% is probably what the standard is from what I've seen. And so the goal is for life to become cheaper for me. And so I want to test that out and see what it's like to live on Bitcoin, get paid in Bitcoin, and see how my life will transform, because life on Fiat has not necessarily been the best for me or anyone for that standard, since it's worthless at this point in time. It's just becoming more worthless as time goes on. So want to definitely check out what it's like to get paid in Bitcoin and live on that.
Yeah, what a cool experiment and what a bold move. I love it. You're also helping the network by spending and using Bitcoin. Is that part of your motivation also?
Yes. So of course, I definitely want to help the network because it needs Bitcoiners to spend and not just hodl. I think hodl culture is definitely important, but as time is going on, I think it's becoming more important than ever to actually use Bitcoin the way that it's intended, which is peer-to-peer cash.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking a little bit about how before you got into Bitcoin, you were living on, we called it the Fiat standard, and getting into some debt and using the debt-based system. Tell us how your thoughts have changed around that.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely important to recognize that we're still in a fiat system and that we still have to use it to some extent. But the current system that we're in, I feel, promotes and encourages taking on debt. And to those who are not knowledgeable about our money, our fiat that we use daily now. I feel that system takes advantage of people. It certainly happened to me. Without going into too much information, I definitely had some debt here over the last 10 years. And I've definitely paid a lot of that debt off, but it's a trap. The system needs debt to keep going. And I don't want to contribute to that anymore. And so that's part of the motivation too with going on a Bitcoin standard. I don't want to continue to feed into that system.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I want to go back a little bit to using Strike and living on the Bitcoin standard. Does where we are in the cycle affect you? And do you still keep close tabs on that?
Yes. So if you're going to be continuing or doing something like me with Strike, you definitely have to pay attention to the economy and the market. Of course, I have long-term vision, so I am prepared to accept that there may be some losses for me in the short term. But as we Bitcoiners know, you have to zoom out with Bitcoin. So I have some volatility this month. I'm actually negative a little bit. However, that doesn't faze me. I do all of my spend on credit cards. And so I plan to use a lot of the benefits that credit cards offer to help offset any potential losses that I might experience. Because when I do pay my bills with Bitcoin, there may be a small capital gain, there may be a loss. And so the credit card spend definitely helps offset any losses. At least that's my thinking and strategy right now.
Well, let's get back to the capital gains because that would be a lot to track. Does Strike track all of the capital gains for you?
Yes, so they definitely track all the taxes, and come tax time, if you are subject to a capital gain, they provide all those forms to you.
Oh, wonderful. So that makes it a lot more simple. So, where do you think we are in the current Bitcoin cycle? And are you expecting an elongated cycle or moving forward? Is that your thought, or you just take it month by month?
I take it month by month, and of course, while I welcome any increases in fiat price and all new all-time highs, um, I am not so much more focused on that. I know exactly what Bitcoin is. I know that it's going to be the next world reserve currency, and so I become less concerned with price um, as time goes on.
So, if we did have a regular correction where, let's say, Bitcoin goes to 150 in this current cycle and then corrects back to 90, would you change your strategy or would you just keep going because you have this long term vision?
I have long-term vision. I wouldn't change anything, or at least right now, I don't think I would. But if Bitcoin dips, which I think inevitably it will at some point, I do know these dips tend to be temporary, and it's just Sats on sale for me. So I don't. I used to. I used to panic a little bit when my first year in Bitcoin, when the price would dip, I would panic that it was going down or maybe this was the wrong decision. I no longer have those fears just because I know what Bitcoin is. Um, it's the new system.
Yeah. And even if Bitcoin does go back to 90 and you get paid at that level, your fiat is still around the same amount. Yes, we know that prices always go up in fiat, but yeah, that's at, it's not happening that quickly. It's not happening overnight. So you would still find a way to pay those bills.
Correct. Yeah. So I wouldn't lose anything on the fiat side. Um, and of course, using credit cards kind of helps open up my window in a manner of speaking. What I mean by that is you generally have 30 to 45 days to pay off any credit card bills that you have. And so if I were to get paid and say, for example, Bitcoin is around 90,000 per coin at the time of when I am paid, and it just so happened to go up to 100K, 110K, or back to 120, then life got cheaper for me because I got sats at 90,000 and now that they're 120. And then the extra just goes into cold storage after paying my bills. So I actually accumulate more Bitcoin that way. Um, at least that's my thinking. Um, while I still DCA daily, I believe I actually acquire more Bitcoin doing this.
It's kind of a fun journey and a fun experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes feel like I might be a tiny bit over my head on it, but um, I really feel called to try it out. And so I'd like to do that.
And it's been, around a year since we spoke, and your conviction has obviously grown. Tell us what's changed.
I just continued to learn every day. When we first spoke, I viewed Bitcoin, of course, as a cryptocurrency because it is. But for me, it was the cryptocurrency just has the potential to revolutionize because it just has these certain features. It's a better money. And a year later, now I'm learning, and if you will, I might be wrong here, that there's almost two Bitcoins. There's the Bitcoin network, and then there's Bitcoin stylized with a small b, which is the actual currency of that network. And so I'm learning that it's not just a cryptocurrency that can do things, there's a whole monetary network behind it. And that's strengthened my resolve even more to believe in it further. It's not just crypto. It's so much more than that.
And when you say a network, are you talking about all the people in Bitcoin, the nodes, the miners? Is that what you mean?
It all works together, yes.
Yeah. And I know you have quite a good community where you are and you hang out with other Bitcoiners. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we are Pacific Northwest Bitcoin. I know I touched on them briefly in our last podcast together, but they offer educational services. We've had a couple cohorts so far through the Mi Premier Bitcoin educational services, and I'm totally losing my train of thought here on what they would be called, but it's Mi Premier Bitcoin. They have a Bitcoin diploma, and we teach the curriculum. That's the word I was looking for, curriculum. um, we've taught the curriculum twice now, and I've been a part of those classes, and it's been great to have new Bitcoiners come in and we teach them about it. And then, of course, we have meetups as well.
Wow, that's amazing. And I know you took the curriculum too, obviously. What did you learn from that you weren't aware of?
Everything about our money, going from our current system to Bitcoin. So that was fundamental to me as well, because when we last spoke, I was um, just entering that curriculum and learning about it from that standard. Of course, I did my own research, but having a guided plan where we met weekly to learn about money and Bitcoin was so helpful, because the curriculum is not just this is Bitcoin, this is what it is. We start all the way from the beginning, the history of money, all the way through to the end, to an introduction to Bitcoin and hot and cold storage, miners, nodes, everything. So it was so helpful to meet in a classroom setting for an hour a week and learn about Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think it's something everyone could go through because we can all learn. Hey there. Want to sleep easy? MICROSEED lets you stamp your seed phrase onto a small steel washer. Buy the device once and use it forever. I love it. It's discreet, precise, and easy to transport. Get yours below. For peace of mind with collaborative custody, the Bitcoin Advisor is a trusted team who can also help with inheritance planning. Just scan the QR code or use the link below. Now, back to the show. You and I met on Nostr, and I know that you are mostly on Nostr or only on Nostr. Tell us why you like Nostr.
So I like Nostr because it is permissionless. There is no platform there. It's a social and communications protocol. So I can go on there and I can speak about the things that I'm interested, or speak about things that may be controversial to some. And I can't be deplatformed. I can't be censored. So that's a big draw to it. But I also love the monetary aspect that's built into it. You can be zapped for your content, for the notes that you post on Nostr. Um, and so that's really why I love it so much, that I can go on there, I can speak with like-minded people, and I can be paid for my content. Now, I haven't taken the jump into actual media. It's been more of a casual use for me here in the last year, but just in interacting with people on Nostr, um, I've received probably about 37,000 sats. And there's no other place I can think of where you can just go on to, say, X or Facebook or Instagram and get paid. Sure, you get likes and comments, but do those even really mean anything? I think to some extent that they do, but on Nostr, you can come on and you can be paid for your content immediately. On other platforms, you have to hit certain metrics, a certain follower count, a certain amount of activity before you can even get that. But at that point, they also take a cut as well, you know? And so that's the big draw for Nostr for me is I can link up with people that are like-minded in the Bitcoin space or other things as well, photography, food, athletics. I've seen it all on there. And these people come on and they talk about the things that they love. And for providing value, they're paid with Bitcoin. And that just can't happen anywhere else.
So Nostr really is the Bitcoin social media network because the only thing that you zap in is Bitcoin, as far as I know.
Correct. Yeah. So you can only be zapped in Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin is the monetary network, I would say Nostr is very much the social and communications network, and they go hand in hand. It's almost a perfect match.
Yeah. And, we were talking about kind of bridging Nostr and the regular social media. And I just wanted to explain that on X, I know that you can be deplatformed if you say something that might not like the algorithm or whatever. And what you post there actually isn't your own, because if you leave there, you don't get to take everything and everybody who's on your network. Whereas on Nostr, if you don't like one of, the app you're using, you take all your followers and go to another channel. So that's one of the big advantages. And like you said, getting zapped in Bitcoin.
Yes. Yeah, and just to expand to that as well, you're right. You can take your following and your notes and your media, whatever you post on Nostr, to a completely different client. Nostr is just the protocol. It's not the app itself. My two favorite clients that I go between are Damus and Primal. And so what I do on Primal is also available on Damus, and vice versa as well. And the client is just how you view the protocol. It's very much like email. You have Gmail and Outlook and iCloud. They're all email, but it's just a different experience. And so sometimes I like to change between the clients just to view it, the protocol in a different way.
That's so funny. Those are the two I use too, Primal and Damus.
Yes.
And it's easier to email on Damus, and Primal is easier for me to post my trailers. I would say that the reason why more people don't leave X is because they have bigger followings there. There's more going on there, and it takes time to build on the new protocol. Just like Bitcoin is a new way, Nostr is a new protocol, and it takes time to build a following. But once you do it, you can really build up and, like you said, get a lot of sats and start your own network there. But it's a bit of an ego thing to leave X, where you might have a lot of followers, where you have spaces. That's one of the attractions.
Mhm.
And yeah, I find myself going back to that because it's easier. There's more people there. But at the same time, just like you left the fiat world, there comes a time when maybe I personally and other people are leaving the regular social media world because of these restrictions.
Right. I would agree with you. Though I don't think it's actually bad to be on multiple platforms. I 100% believe in Nostr still. And I know that it's only going to continue to grow in adoption. However, I don't think adoption of Nostr or Bitcoin for that matter can just occur within that protocol. I think you have to have an inroad somewhere. And so I used to believe in just being Nostr only, though I have switched my perspective to the point now where I'm considering getting back on X, potentially even Instagram, YouTube, to be able to have conversations about Nostr and Bitcoin. Now, I fully accept that my reach might be limited on those because for the most part, we're still so early with Bitcoin and Nostr that it's not even on people's radar. There may be people who've never heard of it, really. I've had conversations with people who still don't know exactly what Bitcoin is, but I think it's more important than ever to build a bridge. And so I think it's important to be on multiple platforms now with signs pointing to Nostr. And that's my belief.
Building a bridge. I like that. So, how do you think adoption is growing? And have you noticed it in your friends? Are more of your friends asking you about it, your family?
I would say I have one friend that I know has bought some and probably continues to buy, maybe not at the rate that I would prefer, but I know that they're in tune to it. But for the most part, the answer is no, which tells me that we're still so early. But I definitely think the institutional adoption will start to catch people's attention. But I still think it's going to be a while, to be quite honest. They say that when Bitcoin hits 1 million in fiat price, maybe that's when a lot of people start paying attention because there's something special about that number. I thought there was something special about 100,000, and that was enough for me. But I think for the most part, it's still going to be a while for people to kind of catch on. So in my circle, no, unfortunately not. I do attempt to orange pill people, but I'm normally like a one and done type of person. Some people are just not ready to learn. And that's my experience. I learned about Bitcoin and I bought some back in 2021 and then stopped doing it for about 2 years. And that was the price of tuition. Um, had I continued to do that, I would probably be in a much better financial situation than I am now. Had I just stack sats as I was in 2021. But um, I don't think most people are ready to learn about Bitcoin. I think a lot of people are just trying to survive. But that's why I also think it's more important than ever to kind of harkening back to the social media discussion to have inroads because a lot of the fiat people are on X or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. And so I think we actually have a responsibility to tell people about this revolutionary technology. You literally can change our entire society. It won't happen overnight, but we have a responsibility to tell people about it.
Yeah, we do. Because, that's why I started this channel is to help people get in, not governments. I want people to get in before the
Hmm.
government. But what do you think it is about the people who do get in and the ones who don't get in? Do you think they have to see the problem? Do you have to think they have to be curious? Looking back, what makes some of us want to get in Bitcoin and others take so long?
I think what you've said, and then having the ability to lower your pride and your ego and having some humility to realize that this might be extreme, but that we have been duped, to be quite honest.
Mm.
And that's hard for people to come to terms with sometimes that we are living in a system where our dollar is, in my opinion, completely worthless due to printing over the last 50 years. I would encourage anyone watching this to go to a website. It's called WTF in 1971.com. And there is a wealth of graphs and charts that will show you since we've abandoned convertibility into gold for fiat, that our money has went down and that other aspects of society have also deteriorated as well. So I would encourage anyone watching this to go there to really see what's happened. That's definitely helped me wake up more to Bitcoin as well, because Bitcoin doesn't have that problem. Um, there will only ever be 21 million, but for fiat, it's theoretically infinite.
Yeah, it certainly is. I saw one of those charts, how much value the dollar has lost. And from 1971 till today, $100 then can buy you about $6.24 today. And maybe over how many years is that? Almost 50 something. We think, oh, well, but still, that's pretty bad. A
Mm-hmm.
hundred to six. And
That's a
and
lot.
now it's increasing lately because of COVID, and we're printing more money now. As this debt-based system goes on, it kind of snowballs.
Mm-hmm. And this current system now too, it's with money printing, you can't stop. Otherwise, it all collapses. And so they almost have to keep doing it, especially with the current political state here in the United States. You have things going on between Israel and Palestine, so you have to fund that somehow. There's a lot of policy being done by the current administration where they're trying to spend their way out of things, i.e., the big beautiful bill, that are good on the surface, but I have genuine concerns for the future citizens, my children, my grandchildren, and so it's more important than ever to wake up to what that's happening or what's happening. But I don't think a lot of people are ready to see that. They just say things are so expensive. It's the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It doesn't really matter who is in charge. They're both printing. You know, it's not about this person's policies or how much you don't like this person as to why things are bad. It's because of money printing. They're stealing your time. They're stealing your energy, and it's showing up in your money. That's why you can't buy anything.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Long term, it's not going to make any difference as far as printing goes, who's in office,
Mm-mm.
because even if you go in with good intentions, once you get there, you get a bucket of cold water over your head and you have no choice.
Right.
So that's very true. You mentioned the ego versus IQ journey that many of us have to take. And so what you're saying is that you think people are too set in their ways, or they don't want to believe that they were duped and they want to hold on for too long into the old system, hoping that something is going to come and save us, or that they'll make enough money. And you mentioned also that the fiat world affects other parts of our society. What do you mean when you say the other parts of our society?
Like harkening back to those charts and whatnot that I was talking about from that website, WTF happened in 1971. Like, look at housing. Housing prices are astronomically high, and it's not that the house appreciated in value. It's just that it requires more dollars to buy the same house. And then the same with vehicles. I remember 10 years ago financing a new car and it wasn't anywhere near what it is today. It's not that the cars got better, it just the purchasing power of your dollar got worse. So you're seeing it across the board at in the grocery store. Obviously, things are expensive there still. You know, housing, transportation. It's that's what I mean by it's the system that we're in right now doesn't make things cheaper. It just makes it more expensive. And as they print more, it devalues your current holdings.
Yeah, that's really true. And I've talked to a lot of people how our food is deteriorating because rather than improve the quality of the food, they actually have to make the quality worse because they're always trying to cut corners to make enough money for shareholders. Or so we have to then go out and buy the more expensive food to get the quality. That's why everybody needs Bitcoin.
I would completely agree. It's funny that you mentioned that because in terms of quality, a lot of the processed foods that you see in the grocery store, those are cheap, but good, whole, natural food, organic fruits and vegetables, organic beefs or grass-fed beef, anything like that, chicken, pork, those things are expensive. But the processed food, the Fiat food, is easy and cheap. And because things are so expensive and because people are struggling to pay their bills and put food on their table, they turn to those processed foods. And so there's no incentive for those companies to stop producing the foods as they are now, so that way people can put their money into other places. They do it in the processed foods instead. So that's another downfall, I feel like, of the fiat system. It's just that it incentivizes cheap because the dollars are cheap.
Yeah. And people don't put all the dots together because they don't see that by eating that food, you're actually getting less healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's affecting your lifestyle. I've heard people say to me, yeah, but organic food's so expensive and those farmers are just greedy. I said, no, actually, it costs more to raise, you know, food without hormones and antibiotics. It costs more, and that's why we pay for that. But yeah, that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have a personal Bitcoin philosophy?
A personal Bitcoin philosophy. That's a good question. I guess my own personal philosophy would be, I guess, what I'm doing now, living on a Bitcoin standard. I think you should save your time and energy in Bitcoin, because when you save it in dollars, the same dollars you have now are not going to be worth what they're worth now in a year. And so I definitely think that you should put your time and energy into something that's going to last, something that more can't be created of. Okay. With Bitcoin, there's only ever going to be 21 million. With dollars, it's infinite. And so I think that's how I would answer your question. Put your time and energy into Bitcoin.
And that sounds to me like a low preference lifestyle too, because in the long term, you're putting your time and energy into Bitcoin and saving that for a better future also.
Correct. Yes. So I have my sats that go into cold storage that I plan never to touch. And that's how I'm going to essentially retire, in my opinion. Of course, I think there will come a day to use those. It's not now. I have my contribution that I want to make to the network with the experiment that I mentioned at the beginning, where I'm going to live on a Bitcoin standard through Strike. But I have sats that I'm taking with me, 10, 20, 30, 40 years and into the future. And what I don't use is going to my kids. So that way they can use it for their lives and their children one day. Because we haven't seen the last of the sats to be mined still. You and I won't live to see that day, unfortunately. 2140, I think, is when the last sats will be mined. And so, yes.
What do you think the importance is of self-custody versus buying in the ETFs?
Um, well, ETFs, I feel like, are paper Bitcoin. It's not actual Bitcoin. I think you should just have the real thing. But I understand that Bitcoin's fairly technical, and this would be a good introduction to Bitcoin for some people. And so if that is something that you're considering, or anyone who's watching is considering going into ETFs, I think that's a good intro. You should learn about Bitcoin more as you do that. But eventually, I think you should just have the real thing. It'll ultimately serve you better in the future than the ETF.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I interviewed Jimmy and he lost 7.4 Bitcoin and he
I
was in,
saw.
yeah, and he was in cold storage. So it's really important that you keep your Bitcoin safe. That comes with learning. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, anything you would add to self custody?
Yes, when you are exploring self custody, you should not be in a rush to do so. It took me years before I went into self custody. Part of that being that that was during the time where I wasn't a Bitcoiner yet. It probably would have happened much sooner had I been, but don't be in a rush to learn about self custody or multisig. That's when you're going to make mistakes. I think it's okay if you are holding on an exchange for a short amount of time. Um, Learn about self custody, but take it one step at a time. When you learn one aspect of Bitcoin, learn about the next step, and then just continue to build off of your education. And eventually you'll be ready to do something like custodying your own Bitcoin. Because if you make a mistake, unfortunately, there's no going back. And what I would recommend too, when you self custody for the first time and take control of your own money, is start with something small. Do a test transaction. That's what I did the first time. It was 10,000 sats. That was my wallet test. And it showed up there. And then I started with smaller or slightly bigger amounts after that, just to get comfortable. Because if there's any one character off in your receive address, your Bitcoin's going to go somewhere else completely. So definitely just take your time. There is a lot of, I feel like, fear and uncertainty and doubt when it comes to like getting into cold storage, but everything's okay. I think it's unlikely where you're currently storing your sats at, your Bitcoin's going to be taken into custody or they're going to fail. Of course, it's a possibility, but just one step at a time, one day at a time, and I think people will be all right.
Yeah. I think that's solid advice. Take it slow, learn, and most importantly, know that your seed phrase is your key and not to share that with anybody. The only time you really need to use that is when you lose your wallet, which
Correct.
we're not
Yes.
planning on doing.
We are not. And for those that are exploring or already have their keys offline and have their sats in cold storage, do not put your signing device and your 12 words or 24 words together in the same place, because someone can take your signing device. If for some reason they are able to get a hold of it, they can't do anything with that. But if you have your 12 or 24 words, you can still access your Bitcoin on another wallet. Just don't put them together, because that's a point of failure right there. And you are completely cooked, as the kids would say today.
That's a really good point. Really good.
My teenager says that to me all the time. Cooked.
Oh, that's one of the latest. You're cooked.
You're cooked. You're in trouble, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, I like that. So do you think, we alluded to it, but do you think people really need to understand the problem before they can really see Bitcoin's value?
Yes, and I don't think people are ready for it yet to confront that. As of right now, they just look at it like things are so expensive, and what's the reason why? And it's because that politician's doing that, and when my guy gets in, things will be better. I fell into that trap too. But when you start looking into Bitcoin, that's when you start to see all the flaws in our current system. They're not talked about anywhere else. I really feel like when you do a deep dive into Bitcoin, you start noticing things about the system that we're living in right now that are just wrong. That's how I learned. Um, Another example I'll make too. I don't know if I might have mentioned this in our previous chat, but my late stepfather, he used to tell me all the time. Back in my day, when I was a kid, movies were 25 cents, and now movies are whatever the price is, $6 to $10 or $15 a ticket or something like that. No one, I think, ever really stops to ask, well, why is that? That's just a really simple, elementary example of just inflation stealing the purchasing power. It's not the movies got better, it's just your dollar buys less. And so I remember that just sticks out to me for some reason, that he would say that to me. I was like, oh man, like used to be 25 cents. Like that's great. Like movies are $10 to $15 now, but why? And so, but you can also apply that to so much: housing, vehicles, your food, subscriptions, anything. Why is everything more expensive? And so when you start looking to that, I think you inevitably will find Bitcoin at the end of that.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good start, and it's very true because people that I have had several conversations with about Bitcoin, and I say, but inflation isn't normal. It's not normal that things are going up so much. They still don't get that. It's been so ingrained in us through the media that I believe most people think inflation is completely normal. They think it's going a little bit too far now, but still, they still have this feeling that a little bit is normal, and it takes a while, like you said, to recheck your ego and realize that we really have been duped.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. Um, no politician is coming to save us. At least that's my stance now. I used to believe the opposite. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people are still in that mindset that, oh, well, when my guy gets into office, it'll be better. And they always say that on the campaign trail. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do. We've all heard it before. And a lot of people wait in these 4-year cycles for that, but it never ends. Nothing ever gets solved. Um, and so I think as time goes on, I definitely think we're in a cultural and societal shift right now where we can see, behind the veil now. And it all started with COVID, with the mass amount of money printing they did, but a lot of other things have come to light. So I think definitely people are waking up, but I think it's a slow burn at the same time where it's going to be many years for people to realize what's going on. And I sometimes feel like they're not going to be able to get into the financial revolution that's happening now really until it's too late, because we're in a position now where you can actually take your fiat and buy thousands of sats depending on the amount. I for example, have done $10 a day DCAs, and I can get whatever the price is right now, like about 8,000-9,000 sats for that $10. But it's going to come a point in time where you can't even buy Bitcoin with fiat anymore. You have to earn it by giving your time. I want to do my part now to tell people, because I used to just have a hodler's mentality. I used to just have this, I'm going to try to orange pill and I'm one and done and that's it. But I think we have a responsibility as brothers and sisters here in this country to tell people about it, that there's something better.
And Kyle, how are you getting your message out? Obviously, being on this podcast, I know you spread the message on Nostr. Are you feeling that there's more you can do?
There is. And so um, I am going to start having accounts on other platforms. I think it's necessary now. I used to not think so. Of course, I think word of mouth is great, but at any given point in time, whether you're on Facebook or Instagram or X or TikTok, there's never been a point in time where you have an unlimited audience at your disposal, and you should use that platform to get out the message about what Bitcoin is. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. Over the past year, I've just been, of course, talking about Bitcoin on Nostr and building my stack, but I don't think that's enough anymore, at least for me, and I want to do more.
Good for you. On X, there's daily spaces that talk about Bitcoin. The one that I often join is Bitcoin Today
Mhm.
with Lauren and Terrence Michael, and Bob Burnett was there today. Jeff Booth was a special guest. He only comes on for special guests because he's 100% on Nostr, as you know.
Mhm.
But that is a good way. Even today, they were talking about the Knots first core and the miners debate, which I wanted to ask you a little bit about. But those spaces are good. They just seem to be divided between the financial people, which talk about the ETFs and the treasury companies a lot, and then the other side. But they're all there. It's just about finding the people that you want to reach.
Right. So I on core versus knots, um, that's such a deep topic. And I'm still really learning about it here in the last week or so. But the main debate seems to be, are we going to allow spam in the network, or are we going to empower people to be able to filter out certain things? I think there's a little bit of validity to both, and I might be completely undereducated on the matter, but from what I see it, if a transaction fee is being paid, then it's valid, regardless of how it's being used. But then at the same time, on the not side of things, I do believe it's also a misuse of what the monetary policy and the network. I think it's a misuse. I don't think that's what Satoshi intended. And so I'm kind of down the middle on that one. Though I am leaning more towards not, because I also think, from what I've heard, this seems to be a danger to the network in general, allowing the spam. And so I don't know what the solution is, but I also think that we should be empowering people in Bitcoin to make their own decisions. And at the developer level, you shouldn't have those decisions taken away from you, because then it becomes centralized. You have a group of people being able to dictate what it is, and that's completely against the Bitcoin ethos, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And at the very least, not call each other names, because we are all Bitcoiners and we all want the Bitcoin network to flourish. I
Mm-hmm,
am no expert on this either. I'm leaning towards not, very much so, because I am a monetary maximalist more.
mm-hmm.
But I also advise people to go to Bitcoin University or Matthew Crowder, because he knows a lot more
Love
about it.
Matthew.
Yeah,
That's actually where I've been getting all of my information, um, on Bitcoin, or on core versus knots. And I love the way he's explained it, because there's so many technical aspects of Bitcoin that year or two into Bitcoin, I still don't fully comprehend, but he has just a way of breaking it down
yeah,
that has been really helpful to me. And so, yeah, just to expand on that, Bitcoin University on YouTube, and is a good resource if you want to learn more about Bitcoin, or that topic in general.
yeah, absolutely. So as I've developed here, I often ask people if they believe there's a spiritual side to Bitcoin. Not so much religious, just that Bitcoin could be used as a tool to look deeper. Have you found that?
Um, I suppose so. Obviously not from the religious aspect. I think there's an avenue to explore there, but it's just not something that I personally have done. But on the spiritual sense, I think it has awakened myself and a lot of people to be more in tune with what is the proper way to really live, the proper way to have money, the proper way to eat. At least that's been my experience. It's woken me up to better health, better monetary policy. Um, and I don't think I would have had that awakening without studying about Bitcoin. So I would agree. I think there's a spiritual side to it in a sense, but I think that that's also different for everyone.
Yeah. And would you also say it's given you meaning?
Yes, because now I don't feel like I'm working for nothing. I have hope with Bitcoin. I know it's going to be many years before I see that come into fruition, the world that I want to see. But I know that we're going to get there. It's given me hope. I don't feel like I'm giving away my time and energy and getting just a small fraction of that back in terms of purchasing power and quality of life. Here in the last year was kind of in a dark place. I was really burnt out. I was working a lot of extra time for my Fiat job, and while granted it was extremely helpful to my family and I just wasn't able to accomplish what I felt like I should have been able to with the money that I was earning. Um, and that's another drive for me to go on the Bitcoin standard too, where just like my money every day doesn't do what I need it to do. I have to spend all this extra time just surviving and staying afloat and working all these hours just to do that. But on Bitcoin, I don't have to do that. And so that was, for me personally, that was a big draw for me to start going on a Bitcoin standard, because on the fiat standard, I haven't gotten anywhere. But on a Bitcoin standard, I have, and I'm only year 2 into being a Bitcoiner, but I've already seen it change my finances and change me.
I love that example, Kyle. And what it sounds like to me is you see a light at the end of the tunnel. Even if you do like your job and parts of your job, you don't want to be overworking. And now, because of, or maybe working forever, like so
Hmm.
many people have to work past the age of 65 just to retire. And I don't think that's what life is only about. So, for those of us who get on Bitcoin, see a light at the end of the tunnel and a way to spend more quality time with the people we love and do the things we want to do and not always be working.
Exactly. Again, more motivation for me living on a Bitcoin standard, because I feel like I can obtain that. The retirement age, that might have been something that worked out years ago when, fiat wasn't as devalued as it is now. But I don't think that system works anymore, working till 65, especially with the dollar's current value. People are having to work past that now. Um, and I think that's just wrong. Yeah, I definitely believe that Bitcoin is the only way any of us are really going to get ahead. And I have hope, as you were saying. I do,
Yeah.
and it's thanks to Bitcoin because of that.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I'll be checking in with you in another 6 months to a year or so to see how the journey is progressing. But yeah, I think you have a really powerful message and keep getting it out there.
Yeah, I definitely will. I'm going to, like I said, I'll be joining other platforms. There seems to be a trend on Nostr right now for vlogs. And so, as part of me um, living on a Bitcoin standard here for the next year, I will also be posting vlogs daily for the next year as well. Um, I think it's more important than ever to start making video or media talking about one's personal experience with Bitcoin. I think that helps adoption.
Oh, cool. Okay, we'll look out for you on Nostr and tell us where people can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on Nostr. Kyle Sylvestre is how you're going to find me. And as of right now, that's my only account right now. I'll be sure to share other platform information there as well. But on Nostr, look up Kyle Sylvestre, P&W base Bitcoin signal.
Well, thanks for joining me today, Kyle. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me back, Paul. I really enjoyed it.